Back again. Because the first time I ever heard my accent was when I first I was the manager of a factory, and I at that time had a telecom and a recorder, and I used to speak to my secretary, not before her, very early when the first time, and also when computers, I could hardly use a computer now, but I was one of the first with a computer on the end. And all that I had on there really was the output, the cost of material in it, labour, and I had it all analysed, and I could see what profit there was in everything that came in.
On the computer?
On the computer, That was the first time. Before then, it was at Metavix. Metavix built one of the first computers in the UK. Oh yes, and they took us to see it, the managers from the department.
Was that with Manchester University?
It was Manchester University. And they built this thing, and it was in a room as big as this house, and all the way along.
Great big thing.
And it was a great big thing. And they actually designed it, and I think what they were explaining to us when they took us round, this was around about 1950-ish. What they were explaining to us was that this computer would be able to design all the things on a turbine and generator in a matter of a day, which used to take them months. Lots of engineers and months to calculate. And this computer was going to do that, and of course this is where it started, because
they're so clever, these computers.
Makes you wonder how far it's going to go.
And that Bill Gates, he deserves every penny of that for doing what he's done.
Well, you see, in Salford Park, you see, the first big turbine that was built, one of the first big turbines, or early turbines that was built, was on test at the end of the aisle. And it exploded, and the rotor went through the air and landed on First Avenue near the park.
Did it?
Yes. Yeah. And it just, it was going so fast. And of course it was during that period that in engineering they found that there was a lower stress level and a higher stress level.
Right.
And this is what happened. They went through the highest stress level slowly, and the engine went.
But I bet when you're so brilliant mathematically, I bet you could have done computers if you'd been in the right place at the right time.
Probably did. I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered with it.
So, Jack, that's the citation, you know, for your namesake.
Well,
Jonathan Adam Smith.
Oh yeah.
For his medal.
Yeah.
Can you read it from me?
Can you read it? No.
I've got my glasses down.
You have to get. It says Jonathan Adam Smith, during successful attack by his company, led his platoon forward under heavy machine gun fire with conspicuous courage and skill, capturing 2 machine gun posts. Although the enemy in proportion of 3 to 1, he showed so much dash and leadership that it led to the capture of the position with very few casualties. Have you told that? Yeah. Tell me the story about.
Well, you know, the railway. When I was going to and from school, I used to. In those days, they always horse and carts. I used to walk along, as I said to you, wherever there was a horse or a pony. And this man, working for LMS, used to come up and down Odsal Lane from the railway depot to deliver things all the way down Odsal Lane. And I used to be coming home from school, and he was going along, and I should say, "Can I have a lift, mister?" You know, he used to, then he started talking to me, and he was with Uncle Johnny.
Yes, yeah.
In the trench, and it, you know, and he knew me, and he started talking, and he told me that Uncle Johnny was there, and when he was killed, they were trapped. And this is the story he told me. They were trapped by snipers, and they were trapped and couldn't get out. And this man told me that every time one of them showed his head, it killed him. So Johnny decided that to get out of there, they had to get these snipers, but he wouldn't ask one of his soldiers to stand up because they were all married and he wasn't. So he stood up and he said, as soon as you see the flash of the guns, fire. And that's how they got the sniper, he told me.
Oh, he was killed. He used himself as a
He got killed.
How sad, isn't it?
And that's why, and that was one of the reasons he got his medal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because his bravery of doing that, and
Yeah.
he got killed. That's what they told
And this
me.
man was there, was he?
He was there, he was with him. Yeah, because
So
you
if
see,
I
in
could
those
say
days, as
fighting.
you know, the army, all the army that were anywhere, were the army from the area.
Yeah.
They all, you know, like all the people in Salford went from
Yes.
Cross Lane,
Yeah.
and they were all in the same unit.
Yeah.
In the Second World War, they started to change that. They wouldn't let brothers, unless the brothers insisted, being in the same unit. But in those days, they'd have
Yes.
units with all of them.
Yeah, they used to call them something or other, pals.
Yeah, and they used to march out of the town in the First World War, march out of the town to go to
Yeah,
the
they're
war.
all the
Oh, don't, it makes me cry because they're so young.
Yeah.
The boys were so young.
And of course,
I want you to fight them.
they had such a loyalty, from what I heard in my youth about the First World War. They had such a loyalty that they all wanted to go.
Yeah.
They all wanted to be the first to get in there, you know.
Yeah.
And it was an
Well,
honour
also,
to
a lot of them
Yeah.
probably didn't have work, did they then?
No, some of them
And
probably,
it was,
yeah.
yeah.
But it wasn't for that reason that they went
No,
in
they
most
just wanted
cases.
to be-
They wanted to be the ones that was, if you like, fighting for their country.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
honour, that they all
Yes.
wanted to fight for
Yeah.
the country. And Uncle
Alex.
Alex actually got in before he was old enough.
So that's where his memorial.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
From he was in the show. It says in memory of Private A. Smith.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Died on the 24th of April,
right.
1918.
and now he when he went in, he claimed he was of age and he wasn't. He got in before
Was he only 18 when
He was before. He got in before he was 18. I was told he gave
Only
it.
when he was killed.
I was 18 when he was killed.
Yeah, so was Johnny 21.
Yes, that's right. He was in 1918.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he got in before. He'd already been in the army for a while then. And he told him he was 18 and he wasn't to get in.
He was born in 1900. He was born
Yeah.
in Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
So the other thing, Jack, is tell us the story about your deaf grandmother, right? And about the thing.
Yeah, well, from what I was told about them, my granddad was deaf.
He was the iron founder. Worked in the foundry.
No, yes, he worked in the foundry, yeah. And he came down, and although in Salford Park, one of the big factories was Redpath and Brown. But Redpath and Brown came down from Aberdeen.
Right.
They didn't start in Salford Park, which was an industrial estate.
Yeah.
Came down. Now my grandfather came down with them.
So that's Hannah.
And then my granddad came down because his father had come down.
Yes.
And that's how they come to get into Trafford Park. And of course, I always say that my mum and her family were the first ones to immigrate from Scotland. Because they came down in a boat. They came down in a boat and came
That's
up
right,
the canal.
fishing boat.
Yeah.
But they came down twice, didn't they?
Yeah. And they came up the canal, and they actually, my grandma and grandpa used to show us the place where they docked on the wharf. They docked them on the wharf, and they went into the thing. And my granddad Smith was actually one of the founders of the Working Men Club
Yes.
in Salford Park,
Yes.
and he had his
Well,
name
Grandma
there.
showed us that,
Yeah.
didn't she?
Yeah.
She took
There
it.
was a plaque up there on it.
And he was the deaf one, wasn't he? He was deaf.
No,
There was
he
one
was
beyond
alright.
that. Jonathan Smith was deaf. It was one you're called after, who married Christian Mackey.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And she was a Jewess.
Well, that's what you keep saying, but I can't get that trace.
Well,
I can't get that trace.
no, because you see, she was a Jewess.
That's Christine.
From my information was she was a Jewess from Leeds or somewhere, and they
Yes.
went up to Scotland.
Yes.
And of course, my great grandma
Yeah.
was born deaf and dumb.
Right.
So she was called Christina.
Yeah, that's I don't know her name.
Yes, Mackey.
Well, she was
Deaf and dumb.
now she was put into the asylum,
Yes. Yes.
blind and deaf.
She was your great grandmother.
Yes,
she was
that's
deaf
great.
and dumb.
She was your great grandmother.
Great grandmother.
Yeah.
And she was deaf and dumb, and she was put into this asylum,
Yes.
and her family disowned her. because
stigma
it was a
those days.
stigma of having it.
Like your
In actual
family,
fact,
like,
another thing that my
mothers.
mum told
Yes.
me
Yeah, they were rich.
was
for
she
sure.
was very rich.
Yes.
Their family was very rich, but she was disinherited.
Yes.
She got nothing.
Yeah.
Well,
And if my
You see,
granddad,
I found her marriage to Jonathan Smith,
Yeah.
right? That thing in Aberdeen,
yeah,
Old Macca, right? I
Yeah.
found that, and I found them on the census.
Yeah.
And I can't, and found, but
you
according
don't
to
find
this,
anything before her.
no, she was born in Aberdeen, according to this. According to the censuses, she was
She
born
might have been born in
in
Aberdeen.
Aberdeen.
But her family was from
Leeds, weren't
Yeah.
they?
And she was immediately put into this asylum, from what I was
Yeah.
told. And my mum said at that time it was bad and they just disowned her.
She
And
may
his
have
granddad
thought she might
hadn't
have
come
born in
along.
Aberdeen.
But Jonathan, he was deaf as well, wasn't he?
He was
Maybe,
deaf, but not
she
dumb.
might have
Yeah,
just
and she was
thought
deaf
because
and dumb.
She was
all
deaf
her
and
life
dumb.
she'd been there.
Yes.
And
So on a census form, she
why
must have
he
just thought
was,
she'd been
why he
born
got
there.
the job with Ref Pastor Brown was because he was deaf.
Yes, to
Yes.
make
And he
it,
was a charge hand foreman sort of thing.
Yes,
And he
yes.
could give them all instructions and the noise never bothered him.
No.
He could speak to them, you see,
Yeah.
and give them instructions. And being deaf, the noise in the place didn't affect him. And that was the other thing that my mum told me, that he got that. And he, as I say, my mum said that if he hadn't have married Grandma, she would have stayed in this asylum for her life.
because they'd met in the asylum.
They met because he was going to the deaf school,
Yeah, because
because he was deaf.
And she was there.
She was there.
Yeah.
And he met her, and that's how he met her.
There's a film.
Tell us the story about when you went round, how they knew the
Oh, yes.
doorbell.
We used to go up, and my mum would say, "Come on, we'll go and see my grandma." Oh, no, Pacey. Now, they were in 10th Street at the lower end,
Yeah.
and the lower end went from 1010 down up to a different number. The other end, they're a different type of house. They weren't as big as Grandma's house. And Grandpa Smith was up there. They lived up there. And theirs was, I always remember the door that they had there. And we went there and we used to go up and you pulled a rope. And the rope went through the hallway into the kitchen. And they had, just like, you remember the old clothes racks?
Yes,
they used
yes,
to live
yes,
on. Well, they
yes,
had one of those, and it had cloth on it, and it used to flap,
It's
and it had flapped
Yeah, so this is
as you pulled it.
Yeah.
And when we used to be in the thing, and then we started doing, we used to pull Grandma, Nana, Nana, and she'd point up and she'd go and open the door.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds
yeah,
similar.
we used to always say that. And at that time, in 10th Street, at the time I'm talking about when I was 5, 6, 7,
Yeah.
8-ish sort of age, and I was there, and in the streets in 10th Street, he didn't have a road going up. They all had little gardens in front of them,
Yes.
a little wooden garden. I always remember which week when I used to get my suits when I was young. I used to always be putting these little velvet suits as my suit in them.
Yeah.
And this particular week Sunday, I went to Grandma's and I was playing on the gate and fell off and ripped all the velvet pants.
Oh God, I bet you were in
Yeah,
trouble.
I was in serious trouble that year. Yeah. But as I say, they used to have gardens there, but the ones up the street didn't. Only, if you like, 10th Street down, that end of it, we had these little
We
gardens.
went to 10th Street once
Grandma
before they
took
knocked
us
it
there,
down.
yeah.
Yeah.
She took us on this kind of little tour
Yeah.
of where she used to live.
Yeah.
Showed us the working men's club
Yeah.
and everything,
Yeah.
didn't she?
Oh no,
It's still there.
as I say, my granddad was very.
So it was his son, he was your great grandfather, the
Who?
deaf ones.
The deaf one was my great
Yeah,
grandfather.
and then their son, Alexander, was your grandfather, Smith,
Alex.
Yeah,
They
Alex.
used to always call him Alex.
and he was the allotment one.
He was the allotment one.
So tell us the story
And
about the allotment.
He was a lazy one, they said.
Right,
And
tell us
I've always said he never had a
But was
bloody
he the
job.
reader? Was he the one who had all his books in the front
Yes,
room?
in the front room.
Yeah.
And he always had, which was always mesmerising for him, he always had a glass transparent thing with a silver coin, a sixpence in it or something. Yeah. And he always had this. It used to amaze us, you know that.
Well, what
but
was
your
it?
dad was was his favourite.
Yeah.
He could go into the thing, but he wasn't very interested in the other kids. Once we'd said hello to Grandpa, he went to out of the room.
And then, but he let him go in and read
Oh,
his
yes,
books.
because he was old, you see. He was the
Yes.
eldest. He was
Yes.
the eldest of that time.
Yeah.
But I don't remember him having a job,
Ever.
ever. Don't
I
remember.
suppose we've
Well, they
probably
were in the trade union, weren't they? I thought Grandma said that his brothers.
He might be.
I think, didn't he work at Redpath as well?
He did at
He was the
first.
founder, because if you look at the census records, he got
Yeah.
his thing.
Yeah, Grandpa, his father was,
Yeah.
but not
I think it
Grandpa.
says he was as well at some
Okay.
point.
He was one of the workers there when they first came.
He didn't
He
like
came
it.
down as the worker,
And then he
but he didn't
stopped.
like work.
He didn't like work.
That's what they said. My mum always
He
said.
tried it, didn't like it, did
Lazy
he?
devil, he said. She said he's a lazy. And I only ever remember him making his money, breeding Scotties.
Yes.
He bred Scotch terriers
Yeah.
in the backyard, in a hut in the backyard. And his other thing was his allotment,
Yes.
which before the war, the allotments was where the Metrovix aircraft factory was built.
Oh, right.
They took his allotment away to build the Metrovix aircraft factory.
Dear.
And he had the allotment there, and that was when I used to go. He used to do the allotment, and I used to go along. And when we went, we used to go up and see him. And by this time, I wasn't one of the young ones. I was
Yeah.
8, 9, and so on, 10. And I used to go down, and then he used to. You remember the little wooden
Yes.
platform things?
On wheels.
I had one of those
Oh,
with a box at the back.
Yeah.
And I used to pull it down up to Trafford Park, fill it full of vegetables in Trafford Park, pull it all the way back into Salford and sell it round Salford, the street, down the street, and then take the money to Grandpa.
So lovely.
Yeah.
Really is.
So I've got the census that says Jonathan Smith, construction engineer,
Yeah,
plater, worker, Scotland, Aberdeen,
yeah,
daughter Jane, Maggie. This is 1911.
yeah.
But it says he's a widower here in 1911, but that
Who?
can't be right. Jonathan Smith.
But
That must be a
Grandpa.
brother. Yeah, it can't be right, because if you remember that, it must be a brother then.
No, he wasn't a widower.
When did she die then?
But she was in Trafford Park with him.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. This is
Well,
1911.
that might be a different Jonathan Smith.
No, born in Aberdeen. It's Jonathan and Maggie. Maggie Smith, the daughter, 16, who's a core maker.
No.
Because Grandma was the eldest daughter.
Grandma was the eldest
Yes,
daughter.
She would have been married by. She'd have been out by then. Married.
1918, we can remember.
Well, yeah.
Yes, she would have been.
She's
yeah.
probably married by then.
Yes, she
Yvonne.
was. Yes.
Yvonne,
Unless this is a different one. But in
Must
that
be a
case,
different one.
well,
because my mum is there's no Maggie.
No.
there was a Maggie went down to.
That is the other one.
So there must be another Jonathan Smith.
No, that's his father.
Yeah, that's his father.
No, his father.
My grandfather, that's his father you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, but when
Maggie.
did your No, but that's what's strange, you see, because they're living in 12th Street, Trafford Park.
They didn't live in
They
12th
lived in 10th
Street.
Street.
He lived
Yeah.
in 10th Street.
12th Street, Trafford Park.
No, Grandpa
No,
Smith.
So this
wrong.
must be another. This must be another Smith who's a
Yes,
family
Smith from
member.
Aberdeen.
That's a bit
I know,
another, yeah, two
I think they got that wrong.
Oh, it's the census. They can
Yeah,
see.
but it won't be the right Jonathan Smith.
I know,
I
but
know.
That'll
Yeah.
be a different person.
no, I know, but there must have been another
Smiths
Jonathan
then,
Smith.
and lots of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smiths was probably quite a dominant there.
I don't know anybody.
And
Maggie is the one who
Tunbridge Wells.
went to Tunbridge Wells. Now Maggie was my mum's great aunt.
Great aunt.
Yeah, my mum's sister. Oh no, aunt.
Aunt. Yes.
Father's
She
sister.
was the father's sister.
Yeah.
Her father's
Great aunt.
sister was the one that Maggie down in thing.
Yeah.
But that's not to say on that census that Maggie was his daughter. Does it say she was his daughter? It could have been his sister.
Well, Alexander
Living
Smith
with
is the
them.
grandfather, right? Wasn't he?
It was
Alexander,
Grandma's
your
father.
grandfather was called
Your
Alexander
grandfather.
Smith,
Yes.
Yeah.
and your great grandfather was called Jonathan Smith.
Yeah.
Married to Christina, because that's
Yeah,
where the two
yeah,
names.
that's
You
right,
can
that's
see the
it.
names
Yeah.
That's it. That's all right.
going all the way back.
Because my
Yeah.
grandfather was definitely Alex.
Yes.
Because my grandmother always called him Alex.
Yes.
Yes.
And we used to as kids always remember that we'd be in the kitchen and she'd say, Alex, come in for your dinner, and he had to sit down to his dinner on his own.
And didn't they have tureens? I can remember Dad
Yeah.
saying that he used to be served from tureens and the
Yeah.
children could only eat when he'd finished.
Yeah.
That's
They
what
couldn't
you
eat
told
it
me
all.
that. You told me
And,
that.
Yeah.
and if she did soup with sheep's head, he got the brains.
Who's working
She used to
too
put the
hard?
brains, and the brains were in little, and he had to have the brain. He got the best part of the soup. Yeah.
So when do you remember your grandmother? When did she die then? The great grandmother then?
The great grandmother
Death.
died sometime before the Second World War, because I don't remember her after the war.
No.
It's before the war I remember her.
Yeah.
I remember her when I was, if you like, 6, 7, 8 sort of age, very young.
Yeah.
Yes, it's true.
And I don't remember either of them after I was about 6 or 7. I don't remember them living
Don't
up there.
you? Don't
No.
you?
Don't
It's
remember.
very
that.
strange
6 or 7.
because that's definitely a Jonathan Smith from
What time
Aberdeen.
did he say? What time did he say that his father, Jonathan Smith, died? When did he say he
It
died?
doesn't say because it's the 1911 census, you see. It just says he's 58 and he's living there in 12th Street, a widower.
Well, he lived in 10th Street. I'm really certain.
I think that might be a different one.
But it's not because it's got the other ones. It's got
Mind you, it
Maggie.
it could not be accurate.
Yeah.
In those days, the censorship
Yes,
might not be
yeah,
that
just
accurate.
No, they probably didn't.
You know,
They
it
never
was-
checked
it was-
them thoroughly, did
No.
they?
Yeah,
They didn't
because-
want computers, they just...
No.
Salford Park was very funny because it was built like an American
Yes,
American
yeah,
city,
yes,
and
yes.
it had avenues running
Yeah.
that way and streets running that way,
Yes.
and you went from First Street all the way up to 6th Street. There was no 7 and 8, I think, because that was where the park was. And then there was 9 and 10. And Grandma was in 10th Street.
Yes.
I remember that distinctly.
Yes, I remember Dad saying that.
Yeah, she was definitely in 10th Street. And the avenues went First Avenue,
Bit like America,
Second
isn't it?
Avenue,
Yeah.
and Third
What
Avenue.
was that because was it American companies who built
American
it?
So
company.
it's built up
Yeah.
as that
Yes,
style.
yes, General Electric of
That's
America
why
built
they had
it.
it like that, which is sensible.
General
Do you
Electric
think
that
that's
became
why
Metro.
they came down to get those jobs because they would also get the houses with them?
Yeah.
Did they get the houses?
Most
with
of the
jobs?
workers
probably
came,
were,
and Metrovix was General Electric when it was first opened. And what happened was, when the First World started,
Yeah.
the British government took it over, and it became a British company because they didn't think General Electric would support the war effort like our own company would.
So
And
we've
it became Metropolitan Vickers.
They've got found here. There's Alexander Smith, 36. This is 1911. Jesse Ann Smith, Jonathan Adam Smith, 13. Alexander Smith, son, 11. Jesse Gordon Smith,
That's my
daughter, 9. Right.
That's my mum.
And here's
1911.
yeah. This is where they're all born.
That's it.
Aberdeen, Plains by Airdrie, Aberdeen. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's Christian Middleton,
That's
daughter,
Angelini.
Susan Smith.
Yes, that's Auntie
Susie.
Susie.
Yes. And they're
And then there was-
4. And the one that
then there
has
was
Betty and Bella.
and they're
Alec, Betty and Bella.
253.
Alec was the brother, the youngest brother. Alec Smith.
Not Frank.
Oh, Frank.
Frank.
Smith.
253,
Where did
2nd
Frank
Street,
come? Was he
Trafford
between
Park.
Betty and Bella?
Yeah, I think it was between Betty and Bella.
And he's
Either
done,
between Betty and Bella or Susan and
Right, yes.
Yeah.
his occupation is granite mason,
who?
Alexander Smith.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
That's I would agree with.
But that's what's
Yeah,
so
that's
funny
my
about the Jonathan Smith,
grandfather.
you see, because you can see the other bits about Jonathan. The fact he was a widower, which is obviously not right. If you remember, it must be another Jonathan
Another
Smith.
Jonathan
Yeah.
Smith.
But when you look at who all the family
Yeah.
is, he's
Yeah.
got Maggie and all these other daughters.
Yes.
All ties
Now-
in.
Now,
Except he says he's a widower. That's the problem.
somewhere, what the relationship was, I don't know, but it was something connected with my granddad, and they were two families in not Harry Street, Holland Street. There was a family there, and she was my mum's great cousin or something, my cousin. And then there was another one opposite the boxworks, which you know what street was that? Opposite the boxwork, and she was another cousin of hers. a different side of the
Yes,
family.
Yeah.
And those two families were living in Salford. But
This
they weren't the Smith side of the family. But they were, if you like, part of the Gordons.
Right.
No, the
so
Gordons,
were
because there are
grandma's
Gordons you
mother's
can
family.
find. I've got lots of Gordons,
Yeah.
right, and
Yeah.
they're definitely the right Gordons, because
Yeah.
you can do by the birth
Yeah.
certificates and
Yeah.
see where they're going. It's just this Jonathan Smith is just so
But that was the funny thing, that one.
strange.
You know how people can email you if you're doing this, because if you make it, what does it tell us?
But it's open, it's public, so that's
And you got an email from this woman, didn't you? You
yeah.
found that somebody was researching it,
Yeah.
and asked her emailed her back, and nothing else.
Well, this-
And she was
this
looking
company-
at grandma's side.
This family from Holland Street left Holland Street sometime after the war-ish, and they moved out when they were setting up the Hulton, little Hulton,
Oh,
the new
really?
family.
Really?
They went out that way,
Oh, really?
and the other family went out there, because lots of families left Salford and went out to Little
Yes.
Hulton.
Oh, right.
And then their small houses was let to
Yeah.
other people.
So they weren't Smiths, were they Smiths?
They
that
weren't
Gordons?
Smiths. I forget the names were now. I forget what the names were. But I always recognised them
Yes.
as something to do with the other part of her family.
Yeah, yes.
Both of them.
Yes, yeah.
And one of them, the one that first moved out to Alton, I thought she was a bit snooty. I thought she wasn't as good as the other one in the other street. I forget her name now. But there's two families
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And they were
So they were grandma's cousins on her mother's side.
they were grandma's
I don't
cousins.
remember
and
know their
so on.
names then, they probably...
But I don't remember their names.
Surnames, don't you?
No,
No.
don't remember the names. And I could see the house that they lived in, and I could, you know, if it was still there, I'd take you to the house and both of them,
Yes, yeah.
because I knew that
Yeah.
better than I knew I remember the names. I remember, because that's my memory. I remember most of what I see,
Yes, visual
Names,
not
memory.
what I get, not remembering names and so on. You take me from here and
Yes.
take me through the hills,
And you'll know where
and then bring me back or leave me
you
there. I'll
find your
find my way
way.
back.
Yeah.
No trouble. I wouldn't find my way back by knowing the street.
No.
I'd find my way back by knowing
Because you wouldn't
landmarks.
remember
Yes.
And that's my,
Yes.
if you like,
Yes.
main part.
Yes,
And
yeah.
that's what happens, if you like, with me in my business and
Yes.
so on.
Yeah, just
Those
see
things
it.
are what-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they say everybody has one sense which
Yeah.
is
Yes. Which
Oh,
is
yes,
sensitive.
yeah. I
Yeah,
will
that's
admit
okay.
that's my sense.
Specialise in, if you
Yes,
like.
yeah.
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 You can't
And that was what we used to happen when I used to go to
specialise
these
in
Dragon
everything,
Ball
I mean,
men.
unless you're a genius.
And rather than
Yes,
Dragon
sir.
Ball man. And I was going with the bread man from Brooks's Bread in Old Trafford. I was going with them when I was 10.
Yeah.
And meeting them, especially during the school holiday. I'd go to the gates in the morning at 7:30 and the bread vans would be coming out. And I'd go with this man and that man and so on. And I went all over the moors. One time I brought 2 chicks back in my hat, in my cap.
From
From the
Yorkshire.
moors. On the moors as we were coming back with this chick. And she gave it to me. And Mrs. Rigby, who lived up the streets in Harry Street from us, my mum said, I don't want those here, but Mrs. Rigby was a real sucker for animals.
Yeah.
She took them, and later that year, these hens were on the kitchen table, coming into the kitchen. I brought them
I hope she gave you
from
some
the hills.
eggs.
I captured them from the hills.
You see, I found Jonathan Smith and Christian M. Smith in the 1901,
Yeah.
and they're in Dumbartonshire, and his occupation iron ship plater,
Yeah.
which would be the same principal, plater working there,
Yeah.
and he's got children, Jonathan Smith, Elizabeth Smith, Jane Smith, Maggie Smith, Isabella Smith, Christian Smith, and Alexander will have left by then because he was already
By 1901.
off to do it.
Yeah.
It's just
Grandma
Unless-
Smith didn't come down until 1910.
No.
From
I know,
Scotland.
she was 9,
didn't.
wasn't she? That's right. But they came once
Whoa.
before
They
that,
came
didn't
once
they? And went back
and then
again.
went back.
Yeah, so
They
that's
all
what
went
did
back. It was the second time they came by
Yeah.
boat.
Uh,
The first time they didn't. I don't know how they, but my mum said it was the second time.
Yes.
But she came, they went back, then they came again. and this time it seems as if they come by boat from Aberdeen
Yeah.
all the way round up to
Yeah.
the wharf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the deaf school in
She was
Aberdeen
very
they
proud
met
of being
at, was
Scottish.
it?
That was the deaf school in
Always
Aberdeen
made
where
the
they met.
point that
Yeah.
she was Scottish.
Well, weren't they in
And she
Blackpool?
said a
Wasn't
lot of
something
things
to
in a very
Blackpool at
Scottish
some
way.
point?
Yes.
She didn't have a Salford
Oh, that was
accent.
No.
She had
that
a
was
very
another
Scottish way of saying
Yes,
part.
things.
yes.
Their name was Burton, or Barton,
Who's that?
in Blackpool,
Yeah.
and that was Ada was the daughter, and her father was my mother's uncle,
Right.
and they had a boarding house in Blackpool, just off Central Drive. What was the name of the? Well, I used to know the street's name, but I forget it now. I could take you to
I
it.
think you said it last time you were talking about this.
Yeah.
I think you said the name of the street, yeah.
Yeah, she I always remember it. It was the second door in.
You
From-
know
from
the
the-
street now.
Yeah, I could
You
take
know
you to the
street,
street,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was opposite the.
He'll probably
The pub.
might come to you sometime. You'll have to
Yeah.
put your banister in.
And
Yes, when it was in the middle of the
and
night.
where the street that when you came out of the house, and it was kind of this way, Burton. Anyway, you come out of the house, you turn left, and you went down the street. It passed the Blackpool football ground on one side, and then it came out near the Manchester Hotel on the promenade. It was a street that ran alongside that, and the gasworks was there. The gasworks was there, and Auntie Ada's house was on this. I forget the name now. Forget where it was now. Forget the name. But that was what Ada. Now, what he was, I don't know. What relation he was, I only know that he was my dad's uncle.
Right.
And Ada was her cousin. And it was because of my dad's, it was her uncle, it was my mum's uncle, because it was her uncle that she went and helped Ada, because he was a very quiet man.
Yes.
And he owned the house, and I remember he used to go out in the morning and sit on the promenade most of the day on those little huts. That was what he used to do every day. And she was running the boarding house,
Yeah.
but he persuaded my mum to come and help her, because she was hopeless, his daughter. She was hopeless. But I forget Ada. Was it Ada? But it must have been my mum's on my grandma's side.
Yes.
It must be their
Yes.
side of the family.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
Well, was he the person who offered Grandma to put her into a B&B or something, and Grandpa wouldn't?
he was the
go?
one that wanted to go and run it.
Let's go there.
But I thought there was some story where
There was the
he
story.
offered this place to Grandma. I don't know which place.
The story is when he died,
Right.
he left something to my mother in the will,
Yeah.
and she came along to our house, and the solicitor had sent my mum a letter, his solicitor, saying that there was this money or something
Yes.
been left by him, and Ada came down, and it was the only time she ever visited in Harry Street. The letter was on the mantelpiece, and she took it. My mother never saw the letter again. She took it.
Yeah.
And we never said the letter, never saw that
So
again.
she never got the money?
No.
She never got the money. That's what he'd done. He'd left her money, or he may have left her something else, but he'd left her something.
I just thought there was some story
That was
that
it.
he'd offered to set her up in something.
Oh, he did. He was.
And little
yeah.
Grandpa didn't want
No.
to go. He didn't want to move.
No.
He wouldn't go.
He wasn't that. No. But he left. He definitely left her something in the will. And Ada saw the will read, and she didn't want my mother to have it. And she came down to see us in Harry Street, and it was on the
I'm
mantelpiece.
surprised at Grandma letting you get away with that.
She never bothered, you see. My mum wasn't really interested in it. But and it always, if they had letters, they used to stick them on the mantelpiece.
Yes.
I mean,
That's
yeah,
where they used to stick
I
them.
mean, you
Yes,
put them in
yes.
certain
Yeah,
places, wouldn't you?
but
Those,
now,
you know,
they used to put them on next to the candlestick on the mantelpiece, put it up there,
She knew. She
and
must
she
know
came,
had
Ada
it.
came, and we were all surprised to see Ada. She'd never been there in our life. And this was just before the war.
Oh, that's
So
just
whatever
terrible.
he'd left me money must have been a hell of a lot of money. Because if he'd left her,
That would have made such a difference.
It would,
to
yeah.
somebody, wouldn't
Yeah.
it?
yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah.
But she came, and the letter was never seen again. Yes. So what happened to her? The house or anything else after that? Because after he died, my mother stopped going.
Yes.
She never went there
No.
again.
No.
And it was just before the war. We were evacuated, so we never went again.
No.
Yes, yeah.
And,
So that was
it's always a little bit.
episode, really.
It's always in my mind a little bit
Finish them.
confused of what happened from the war. All I can tell you was that in '39 I'd just finished the school and I was going into the 11th, into the 11th, which was the senior school. I was moving into the senior school in the August, and the war broke out in the September, and on the 30th of August, I think it was, we were evacuated before the war started.
Right.
We were actually in Buckley Sands before the war started.
Yes.
And when the war was declared, we were actually in Buckley Sands. And we left the senior school, which was just off Oxford Lane, and we all marched to Salford railway station. From the school, we all marched up to Salford Railway, and the other schools all marched into this. And when we got to the
with your labels on.
yeah, with our labels, and I had pillowcases with our clothes in.
No.
Very few of them had cases. They had all the clothes in pillowcases.
I've seen
And
films on
we had,
there.
you had your
on the
name
train
and everything
where
on
you
the
can
thing.
see them.
And we all walked up, went onto the station, all in line, into the coaches. The train was there, and the train left. Special train, all with evacuees on. It left Salford station, and we went all the way up. And the first stop we had for anybody to get off was in Lancaster, but very few got off. But we let some get off at Lancaster. I think that was going to Morecambe and that area.
Yes.
And then we went on to Carnforth. And we were taken off at Carnforth, although we were being evacuated to Boltley Sands. And we were taken off there. Marched up from Carnforth station up to the Cooperative Hall in Carnforth. And we went into the Cooperative Hall. We all sat down there. And then all those going to Boltley Sands were called to come out onto coaches.
So you knew that you were going to Belton.
Oh yes, we had it all down. This was all on the
question
thing.
of just being dropped
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Right.
And we were put on coaches. Some were left in Carnforth and and we went to Boltley Sands. And we got to Boltley Sands and we went into the hall attached to the Catholic Church in Boltley Sands. We went into this hall and we sat down. And of course, we were brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Most of us were two brothers or two sisters and so on.
Yes.
And all the people, they had a line of desks like that. And all the kids were in the hall in front of them, all with the pillowcases at the side. And they came in, all the people, and they say, yes, Auntie, I've got my name down for two. And they say, well, go and choose them. You see, so we go, and they go along through the kids and say, well, I know, you know. You two brothers, yeah, well, I'll have you. We kept on going to Pat, because she was a nice little girl.
Yes,
You see, oh, you're a nice little. She said, yes, she's my sister. And I wouldn't let any of them choose us. I got on my high horse, so I wouldn't let anybody choose us. I said, no. I said, I'm not being chosen. And I stayed there, and we were last. And they actually, this is the honest truth, we were there because everyone that tried to take us, I said no.
Well, what did you think was going to happen?
I don't know. I wasn't going to be chosen. I was not going to be chosen,
You
and
would
so on.
choose.
Yeah, I wasn't going to be chosen. I was a human being, not a cow or a horse. That's the way I felt. And then they came along with this Mr. and Mrs. Oldham, very nice couple, perfect, very quiet and so on. And they actually brought them up and said, would you like to go with these two people?
Oh, right.
And they actually said that to me.
Yes.
And we looked at them and said, yes, we'd like to go with them. And that's how we went, and we were nearly the last.
And you were lucky with them, weren't you?
Yeah, but they hadn't had any children.
No.
And what happened was, before very long, within a month, when my mother came to see us, both of us were full of head lice. And we were crawling with them.
Oh dear.
That was because, not having children,
They didn't know.
they didn't know how to do it. And Pat had to have her hair washed, very infrequent, and not with shampoo,
Right.
because head lice was attracted to shampoo and so forth.
Yeah.
And she'd get the head lice, and she was sleeping in the same bed as me, and she gave them to me. And we were scratching, and that's how my mum saw it. She came to see us on the Sunday, you know. She said, let me have a look at you. And she, oh, look at this, look at this. Oh, that's terrible. Got the teacher, said, look at them. And then they realised, and they just didn't know, how to do it.
No.
We were well looked after. We were washed, perfect.
Yes.
But doing your hair with shampoo wasn't.
Didn't she keep washing the hair all the time?
Oh yeah,
Stop being
and after
dirty, it was
after a
washing.
meal
yes,
at night,
yeah.
I always remember she used to give us ginger,
Did
and that was to
Yes.
for our thing.
People-
And I'd never done it. I think in my life until
Digestion,
she started giving us ginger at night.
Yeah.
Oh no, they were lovely people, but
Yes.
they admitted they didn't know.
Yeah.
It was too. They admitted too.
Yeah.
It was too much for them.
Yeah.
Mr. Isabel, they admitted it was too much.
Too old.
And,
Yeah.
and then we were taken to the Chestnut. And of course, at the Chestnut, they had 4 already, and we made 6. And in the Chestnut, we had a big room downstairs with 6 camp beds in.
Oh, I could have done
We all
with
slept on camp beds.
Did you?
Yeah, we all
That's
slept on camp
lovely,
beds.
really. Yeah. Did you
Yeah.
enjoy that?
Oh yeah, we had a smashing time. They had a big garden and greenhouses.
Yeah.
And they had stables and to get pigs in one of the things, you know. And we had a big front. Well, you can still see it in Botley Sands. If you go down through Botley Sands, the Royal Hotel's on one side, and the house that was the Chestnuts, I don't know where it is now. I showed it you, didn't I?
Yes, we do. I've seen
Big
it.
white house over
I've
there.
seen that, yeah.
And then that was the Chestnuts Hotel. And when I got there, by that time I was 12. And I had been there, and of course, labour was hard to get, because they were all being put on thing. So very quickly I was trained by her to serve. And when I was 12, I had more money than I ever had in my life, because I was serving and setting the tables in the morning for breakfast. I used to get up, light the fire, because there was no stoves. The fire was lit, and the ovens and everything, all hot places, range. And that, I used to do that from downstairs, and Auntie Gladys then used to come down. And while she was doing that, I'd set the table. This was before going to school. And then she'd start the breakfast, and before I went to school, I used to set all the tables and serve whatever breakfast was there. Then at lunchtime, I'd come home and serve the lunch.
But you only went
Because I
half
came
a day,
home from
didn't
You're
you?
always a hard worker, Jack.
And then in the evening, I used to serve afternoon tea. And at that time, there used to be a thing, afternoon tea outside.
Did you only go half a day to school at those days?
At first,
Yes,
yes, because
yes.
there was
Because
not
I
enough
lot,
food.
and then
That
the
takes
other lot.
off.
There was only,
Yeah,
there was,
yeah.
we used to go in the mornings one week,
And then the
and
afternoon.
then in the afternoon the other.
Yes.
I think we used to go from 9 till 1, and then we went from 1 till 5 or something like that. But then, by the time I'm telling you, we would all, a lot of them had gone home, and I was actually integrated into the main school.
Right.
And I used to go into there, and I was in Standard 7, which was the last one before you leave.
Yeah.
And I was,
12.
no, when I was 14,
Oh,
I was
right,
13,
yes,
14,
yes.
I was 13,
Yes.
a year afterwards I was in there.
Yeah.
And I was the only one in Standard 7. and there was Standard 6, Standard 5, Standard 6 and Standard 7 were all in one room. And then on the other room was all of them from, 6 years old up to 11.
Yeah.
And then there was a little hut outside that was a nursery. And I used to go in the morning, and she'd give me a book, Miss Lazarus, she'd give me a book. She said, "Now, Jack, you do chapter so-and-so." And it was a maths book. And I had to do chapter so-and-so on my own. And then when I'd finished it, she'd mark them. And then when she didn't have time to give me something, she used to send me errands.
Did she?
And when I left, of course, there was no examination to leave.
No.
But I got all the things was practically joining in sometimes with the others, but
I
mainly
bet she had you teaching the others a bit, didn't she?
just a bit. Yeah. It was. But when I went home at lunchtime, I used to do the lunch with him. Then in the evening, it was 1 and 6 for afternoon tea, and that used to be bread and butter
Yes.
and jam and a little bit of cream, and that used to be, and then some kind of a cake, and that used to be 1 and 6 with a pot of tea. I used to make the pots of tea, and I used to cut the bread, and I used to cut the bread as thin as that, absolutely thin. Cut them very thin because that was very nice to have bread and butter wafer thin. Cut the bread very, very thin. Oh yeah, and I ran the pantry for years, and of course I got all the tips. And in those days I used to be going out into Morecambe when I rode into Morecambe on the bus, and I'd have 12 shillings in my pocket.
That
was a hell of a lot of money then, yeah.
Well, it was 18 old pennies.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And of course the other thing that always has been in my mind was when I was in that, just around about that time, was the Dunkirk. And I always remember going into Morecambe this particular day, and in Morecambe behind the Midland Hotel was a stone pier that goes out, right? They landed soldiers on that stone pier from Dunkirk. And I went down.
Until you said.
Yeah, I went down, and there were all these soldiers, some with hardly any pants on, all the pants torn, dirty, absolutely, and all laid out. And they'd just come off this boat, and I remember walking down this thing and seeing all these soldiers there, and they brought them up to Morecambe because there was too many down the other side, just to spread them out a bit. And all these were down. I don't know where they went after that. But that's where they landed them in Morecambe Bay, and that was the only ones I saw of the Dunkirk thing was there. And that was a shocking sight. You know, as I said to you about the Navy, going in as a boy, it was all these sights that changed you.
Yes.
It was all what you saw.
Yes.
And of course, as I said to you, what I see is something that sticks with me more than what I read or read. And always it stuck with very badly. I used to be very, if you like, impressed with that sort of thing. It was, oh no, but it was a hell of a time. When we got married, we went up, when I first got married, we went, Auntie Gladys and Uncle, and was up there, still up there.
Oh, did you go to
Oh
see
yes,
him?
they were still doing the hotel, and I took Jonathan
Yes.
at the Queen's Jubilee.
1977 one, sober.
25 years.
60 years ago.
It's
The coronation.
Coronation.
Jonathan was only baby then.
Yeah, for 5 months, 6 months
well,
old.
Will he be 60 in December, Jonathan?
Yes.
Yeah, he was 7 months old. And he went in for a baby competition. And Auntie Gladys insisted that he went into the baby competition as a little boy. And Auntie Gladys took him to Morecambe, and it was the baby competition for the coronation. And he got second prize. A girl beat him as first. He was first prize for a boy because he was second. He got second prize at the baby competition in
And that was Auntie Gladys who made him.
Auntie Gladys who said, I'm taking him to, because she heard it was on, she said, I'll take him to.
But he was a lovely baby, Jonathan.
I've
Wasn't
taken
he,
him
Jack?
to.
He was beautiful. Yeah.
Oh no, they were very proud of it. And after Auntie Gladys died, he left the hotel, he couldn't run it, and he went into a tour with his dad, and we used to go to see him occasionally.
Did you?
Uncle Joe. And I always remember, I have a photograph somewhere, I think you've seen it, where we're walking along the promenade. He always had a habit of walking and scratching the palm of his hand. Yeah, I've got a photograph of him doing that. And we'd gone to see him, and we took him to Morecambe, and we were walking along the promenade, and that's the last photograph I had of him. Because the only one they had was a niece, and it was Auntie Gladys' sister, who lived in Lancaster, and I forget her name now, but she was about the same age as me.
Yes.
And she was in there, but they didn't bother much with
So they had no children of their own?
They had no children of their own, but she had
I bet they
six
wanted
of
to adopt
She
you.
had 60, six, if you like, six evacuees.
Yes.
And but the other evacuees didn't bother with them at all when they went home. There was only me. Being part who bothered with them after
Yes.
they got home. The others,
The pretty ones, you see.
the others just, just fell off the edge of the cliff, And but no, they were very good. What the other story was that I was always wanting to be a carpenter. You see,
Yes.
when I left, as I say, I tell the story, and I still tell the story. I'll say, I've worked all around the country. All over the place, all through Metropolitan Vickers, and so on and so forth. Finished up in Stoke. Right? The only place that's still standing is the funeral directors that I worked with when I was 14.
Is that
All the rest have been.
That's
They're all gone.
the business to be in, isn't it?
They're all gone.
It's not a dying business, is it?
That's the only one. George Mason's is still in Lancaster. And I can show you, if you come down from the town hall, where the town hall is, if you come down from the town hall, straight down the street opposite, straight down, George Mason's you come to on the corner. And it's still there. George Mason's funeral director. And that's where I started, you see. And we used to do those funerals, and they used to put me in coffins to measure the length of the coffin one time, and they used to put the lid on sometimes, one time they put the lid on, the bus came up the stairs because we were up the car in the backyard thing, and I had to stay in the coffin and keep quiet while he was upstairs.
God.
That was one episode there, but then we used to do barns. Dutch barns all over the place. And Dutch barns are the ones with no sides.
Yes.
Just four corners and a roof. And we used to make them. We used to go all over the place. S-Bank, over to the north, the south side of Lancaster, up the river by the River Loon. From out of the Loon, we used to do farms up there. Old farms all over the place. We were doing one
It's lovely over there, isn't it?
Yeah, we were doing one at S-Bank. I always remember it. And we were working on this barn. Two things I remember about that. One was I nearly got killed, and that was when we did the roof. It was a corrugated roof. I used to be underneath the roof where the beams are, on a plank, and I used to hold them behind the place where they were riveting. And I was in this place, and I was holding this one, and it riveted there.
That's why you never going to see he couldn't see you.
No. And I went, and I was like this, and the bloke ran up the ladder and caught me.
Oh, God.
And I was staggering because...
I mean, if it hadn't killed you, could have done
I would have fell from a Dutch barn. And he came, and the other one was, which was the final straw in my as a carpenter. I'd gone from Lancaster with a handcart. You remember those handcarts? I'd go with a handcart, push this handcart all the way from Lancaster, all the way to S-Bank with some stuff for the thing. I know, and then back from S-Bank because you have to come up to Swine and then come up the A6 all the way up into. And I was coming back, and I was just getting to Skirton, coming into Lancaster, which was still a couple of miles from. And I was going, and along came Uncle Joe in his car. Hello, Uncle Joe, hello, Uncle Joe. And he saw me, and he turned round and went past me going that way, and I carried on. I got to the yard, get your coat. He said, I said, you came here to learn to be a carpenter, not to be a bloody nappy. Get your coat, you're not pushing handcarts round here. And never told me mum, took me out of the job. Come on. And he took me back. Next thing, another uncle, Jack Jarvis, was involved with Ireland's Garage. Yes. And Uncle Joe actually worked at that time, Ireland's Garage had a machine shop, doing machine parts for the war effort. And he worked in the machine shop, and they got me a job there as a mechanic.
And that's how you started?
Without my mum. My mum came with me. And it was from there that I finally came home.
Yes.
Because I was about 6 months with the...
So is that what then
I
made
came
you
home when I was
interested in
15.
engineering?
That's
Yeah.
when you did your
Because my mum said, I'm bringing you home. Because Pat had already come home.
Oh, actually?
She came home before me.
Right, yeah.
I was still there working.
Yes.
She came home before me.
Yes.
And I used to come over at weekend
Yes.
on the train from
Yeah.
Boyhood Sands, and she said, I'll bring you home.
Yeah.
And she then was the cook, the head cook and supervisor on nights in Metropolitan
Yes.
Baker's Aircraft.
Yeah.
Well, she knew the superintendent,
Oh, I
and
see,
he got me a job
Yeah.
to be able to go and take it, because you had to go to the thing and take an exam to be apprentice.
Yes.
That's right.
And you went to sit an exam,
Yes.
and you passed. If you passed it, they started you.
Yes. Yes.
And I went and took the exam,
So you
and
started
they started me.
And
Because
then-
Betrovix then, you see, Betrovix then at that time
Yeah.
used to have take you from the works once a week to Stretford Technical
Right,
College,
yes.
and they had a course for you to go there for their apprentices.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you used to go there once a week, and then 3 nights a week you went to night school.
That was a lot, wasn't it? Working full time
yeah.
going to
Yeah.
nights. I remember. I mean, I can remember you seeing always when I was a child, always to be at night
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
You did. You were about 30, weren't you? Something
Yeah, I was about 32, 33
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
That's when I got my qualification.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
And they used to come when I was in my GCSE, well, GCE years. They used to come every Monday night, didn't you, to help me with my maths. I couldn't
Didn't make any difference.
couldn't get it. I remember it was, side rules.
Side
wasn't it?
rules, oh, yeah.
Logarithms.
Logarithms,
And all
right.
that, and I just
That's it. I think
I
you're
wasn't interested in the
It's
least.
because you're not interested in it. I used to do.
And
That's the thing.
And poor Jack used to come every Monday night.
That is the most thing. They
Yes.
can do all that they like with the education system and the
That's just-
examinations.
Can't get the interest.
If they can't get the child to be interested in it,
The
they'll go
boys are
nowhere.
better at that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Because not being interested doesn't stay, does it?
That's right,
Alistair?
yeah.
No, they can take as much as you like, and it won't make any difference.
I know. I couldn't understand the slide rule.
No.
It just was like,
No.
it was almost dyslexic, you know,
Yeah.
I just didn't get it at
No,
all.
no.
And
I mean, now I suppose they
I've
just
still
have-
got a slide rule in my desk.
He has
Yeah.
actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Slide rule.
But there,
We'd better have some more coffee, haven't we?
No, I'm going now.
Oh, I'm
No,
sure.
I've finished
honestly,
now.
yeah.
Are you sure?